The beggar girl finds the millionaire's lost documents. But what she asked in return for the delivery of the documents left the millionaire speechless and crying. Daniela walked through the busy streets of United States City, feeling the heat of the sun on her skin and the weight of the envelope she held tightly to her chest. At only 20 years old, she had already lived a life of hardship on the streets, fighting daily to survive. But today could be different. She had found something that could change her life. Approaching Arturo's imposing mansion, her heart raced. She stopped in front of the huge door, and with determination, she rang the bell. The door slowly opened, revealing a tall and stern woman. The housekeeper looked Daniela up and down with an expression of disdain. "What do you want?" asked the housekeeper in a cold voice, making it clear that Daniela's presence was not welcome. Daniela maintained a firm posture and answered with determination, "I need to speak to Mr. Arturo. I have important documents for him." The housekeeper let out a dry and sarcastic laugh, shaking her head. "Mr. Arturo does not receive beggars. If you want money, go to work," she said, starting to close the door in Daniela's face. Daniela quickly put her foot in the door, preventing it from closing. "I will not leave until I deliver these documents to him. They are very important," affirmed Daniela with urgency and determination. The housekeeper stopped for a moment, hesitating. There was something in Daniela's firmness that made her reconsider. With a look of irritation and disdain, she left the door ajar and entered the house, disappearing into the hallway. Daniela waited, her heart beating strongly as she tried to control her anxiety. A few minutes later, a tall and elegant man appeared. It was Arturo, the owner of the mansion, and he seemed extremely irritated at having been interrupted. "What is going on here?" Arturo asked impatiently as his eyes examined Daniela with a mix of distrust and displeasure. "I found your documents," said Daniela, extending the envelope. Arturo looked at her with an expression of skepticism before taking the envelope. He opened it and quickly checked the contents. His eyes widened as he recognized the documents. "Where did you find this?" he asked with suspicion. "That doesn't matter now. What matters is that I came to give them to you," Daniela replied, trying to remain calm despite Arturo's intimidating look. Arturo narrowed his eyes, clearly not convinced. "My documents can't be in the hands of a beggar like you. You're lying. If you want money, go to work." "I don't have time for this," he said, starting to close the door again. "I will not leave until I give you your documents," Daniela exclaimed firmly and determined. "These documents are important, and you need them." Arturo stopped, his hand still on the door. He looked at Daniela for a long moment, evaluating her seriousness and determination. Something in the tone of her voice and the intensity of her gaze made him reconsider. Then Daniela took some documents out of the folder, and Arturo saw that she was telling the truth. "Very well," he said finally, opening the door again. "Come in, let's talk more about this." Daniela followed Arturo through the immense mansion, feeling out of place among the luxury and opulence that surrounded her. The hallways were decorated with expensive works of art and luxurious furniture, creating an overwhelming contrast with her everyday reality. Arturo led her to an elegantly decorated living room and pointed to a sofa for her to sit on. "Sit down," he said distrustfully. "Explain exactly how you found these documents and why you are here." Daniela took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. She knew that this was a crucial moment, and she needed to be clear and honest. "I was walking down the street when I found these documents in a pile of trash. I recognized your name and address, so I decided to bring them here. I know they are important, and I thought I should return them personally," she explained, hoping he would believe her story. Arturo remained silent for a moment, processing her words. He still seemed skeptical, but the sincerity in Daniela's eyes began to move him. He knew he needed those documents, and the urgency in her voice made him reconsider his initial stance. "Very well," he said finally, still cautious. "I will verify all the documents. But you must understand that I can't simply trust someone who appears out of nowhere. I will investigate this. Daniela nodded, understanding his distrust. Thank you, she said with gratitude. I just wanted to do the right thing. Arturo observed her for a moment more, his expression softening slightly. Let's see, he replied, still skeptical but slightly more open. Arturo examined the documents thoroughly, the expression on his face oscillating between relief and surprise. They were important, as Daniela had said, and he knew that recovering them was vital. After a few minutes of silence, he stood up. He looked at Daniela, who was sitting on the sofa watching him expectantly. These documents are mine. You did a good job bringing them here, he said in a softer but still formal tone. I knew they were important, Daniela replied, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Arturo put the documents aside and stood up, walking over to a nearby table. He picked up his wallet and began writing a check. How much do you want for finding and bringing these documents? He asked, the pen still moving. Daniela frowned and shook her head vigorously. I don't want money. That's not what I'm asking. Arturo stopped writing and looked at her, clearly confused. So what do you want? He asked, genuinely curious. She sighed deeply, knowing that what she was going to ask was something unusual and risky. I want you to treat me like a daughter for a week, she said firmly but with a vulnerability that she couldn't hide. Arturo stood still for a moment, her words echoing in the room. He slowly lowered his pen and turned to look at her completely, his eyes wide with surprise. What? He asked, still trying to process the request. I've never had a real family. I want to know what it's like to have a father, even if it's just for a week, Daniela explained, being sincere and with a tone of desperation. Arturo took a deep breath, trying to understand the motivation behind the request. He had expected her to ask for money or something material, but this was completely unexpected. Something in her vulnerability touched a part of him that he thought was dormant. He had lost his father when he was a child and knew how the absence of a father could mark a person. You are asking me to treat you like a daughter for a week, he repeated, unbelieving. Yes, that is all I want. I don't want money, I don't want anything material. I just want to know what it is like to have a father, even if it is only for a little while, Daniela replied, her eyes fixed on Arturo. Arturo remained silent, reflecting on the request. The idea seemed crazy, but at the same time, there was something deeply human and moving in her request. He had never thought about having children, especially after the death of his father. But now, this young woman was in front of him, asking for something so simple but at the same time so profound. Very well, he said finally. I accept your request. For a week, I will treat you like my daughter. Daniela felt a wave of relief and emotion. She could not believe that he had accepted. Thank you, Mr. Arturo. This means a lot to me, she said, with gratitude evident in each word. Just Arturo is okay, he corrected with a slight smile. Let's do the following, we start tomorrow. You can stay here in the mansion during this week. I will prepare a room for you. Thank you, Arturo, said Daniela, smiling for the first time since she had arrived. Arturo got up and rang the bell. The housekeeper returned, still with a stern expression but now a little more curious. Prepare a room for Daniela. She will stay with us for a week, instructed Arturo. The housekeeper raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Daniela followed the housekeeper down the long hallway, feeling relieved and at the same time nervous about what would come next. Arturo stood watching the two disappear down the corridor, still reflecting on the unusual request. Arturo's wife, Lorena, arrived home with several shopping bags, satisfied with her new acquisitions. She was a woman accustomed to luxury and comfort, and her shopping afternoons were a routine that she liked to maintain. Upon entering the mansion, she saw Arturo sitting on the sofa in the living room with a serious expression on his face. This made her stop for a moment, feeling that something was out of the ordinary. Arturo, what happened? Lorena asked, placing the bags on the floor and walking towards him. Arturo looked up at her, taking a deep breath before answering. We need to talk, Lorena. Something unexpected happened today, he said, indicating for her to sit down next to him. Lorena felt a chill down her spine but sat down, looking straight at her husband. What is it? She asked apprehensively. A young woman named Daniela came here today. She found important documents that I had lost. Instead of asking for money, she made a rather unusual request, Arturo began, watching Lorena's reaction. What kind of request? Lorena asked, the distrust evident in her tone. She asked to be treated as our daughter for a week, said Arturo, waiting for her answer. Lorena opened her eyes, clearly surprised and uncomfortable. What? And you accepted that? She exclaimed incredulously. Yes, I accepted it. I know it's unusual, but there's something about her that touched me. She has a difficult history, and I think we can do this for her, Arturo explained, trying to calm his wife. And where is she now? Asked Lorena, still not convinced. In the guest room. She will stay with us this week. Please, Lorena, try to understand. I think this is the right thing to do, said Arturo, holding her hand. Lorena sighed, shaking her head. Okay, I don't like it, but I'll try, she said reluctantly. Later, during dinner, Daniela went down the stairs timidly, finding Arturo and Lorena already sitting at the table. Lorena looked her up and down, still distrustful. Arturo smiled at Daniela, indicating that she should sit. Daniela, this is my wife, Lorena, introduced Arturo. Nice to meet you, ma'am, said Daniela, trying to hide her nervousness. Delighted, Daniela, Arturo told me about your request. I hope you understand that this is very unusual for us, said Lorena with a cold tone. I understand, ma'am, and I am very grateful for the opportunity, Daniela answered humbly. Tell us more about yourself, Daniela. How did you get here? Lorena asked more softly but still full of distrust. Daniela took a deep breath before starting to speak. I grew up on the streets. I have no family. I lost my mother when I was very little, and I never knew my father. Since then, I have survived alone, doing what I could to stay alive, Daniela explained, her voice steady but with a hint of sadness. Lorena listened intently, watching Daniela attentively, trying to decipher the young woman in front of her. Arturo, on the other hand, felt a growing empathy for Daniela's story. It must have been very difficult for you, said Arturo in a soft voice. Yes, sir, but I learned to be strong. Every day was a new struggle. When I found your documents, I knew they were important, and I wanted to do the right thing, Daniela continued, honesty shining in her eyes. And what do you hope to gain from this? Asked Lorena, still trying to understand Daniela's motivations. I don't want money, ma'am. I just want to know what it's like to have a family, even for a short time. That's something I've never had and it was something I've always wanted, Daniela explained, her vulnerability touching something in Lorena despite her initial resistance. Arturo looked at Lorena, hoping that she would also feel Daniela's sincerity. Slowly, he saw Lorena's expression soften. A little good, Daniela. This week will be a test for all of us. I hope we can learn something from this experience, said Lorena, trying to show a little understanding. Thank you, ma'am. I promise to do my best not to disappoint you, said Daniela, a slight smile of gratitude on her face. Dinner continued with lighter conversations, but Daniela's presence brought a new dynamic to the table. Dan's week at Arturo's house started tense but slowly began to take a different direction. Arturo made a conscious effort to include her in the routine of the house, introducing her to the employees and showing her all the corners of the mansion. Daniela, despite being away from her familiar environment, began to feel a little more comfortable. Although Lorena's presence and constant gaze, her judgment and that of other family members, were a constant reminder that she was still a stranger there. On the first morning, Arturo decided that he and Daniela would have breakfast together. Lorena, visibly reluctant, sat down next to Arturo, watching Daniela with critical eyes. "Daniela, do you have any idea what you would like to do today?" asked Arturo, trying to ease the tension. "I would like to know more about your routine, sir. I want to learn what your day-to-day is like," Daniela answered nervously but determined to make the most of the opportunity. "Of course. Today I have some meetings at the office, but you can come with me. I want you to see what my job is like," said Arturo with an encouraging smile. Lorena rolled her eyes, clearly disapproving of the idea, but didn't say anything. She just continued her breakfast in silence while Arturo and Daniela talked. After lunch, Arturo took Daniela to his office at the house, where he spent a lot of time working. "This is my workspace. Here, I handle the administration of the companies and I have important meetings. I want you to feel free to ask anything," explained Arturo. "Thank you, Arturo. I appreciate this. I've never been in an office like this before," said Daniela, looking around in admiration. During the week, Arturo made sure to include Daniela in several family activities. They went for walks in the park where they could talk freely. On one of those occasions, while they were walking, Arturo asked about Daniela's past. "Daniela, tell me more about your life on the streets. How did you survive all this time?" he asked, genuinely interested. "It was difficult, Arturo. Every day was a struggle. I looked for food in the trash and did small jobs when I could, but the worst was the loneliness. I always wanted to have someone to trust," answered Daniela, excited. Arturo felt a wave of empathy for Daniela. He knew what it was like to grow up without a father, and he felt a connection with her story. They spent the afternoon talking, sharing stories, and laughing together. Daniela began to experience what it was like to have a family, something she had never had before. However, not everyone was willing to accept Daniela so easily. Lorena, in particular, was a constant presence of disapproval. During a family dinner where Arturo's relatives came to visit, the resistance was evident. The glances and whispers did not go unnoticed by Daniela. "So, Daniela, are you a friend of Arturo?" asked one of the aunts with a condescending tone. "She is with us for a week, helping us with some personal matters," answered Arturo quickly, trying to divert the conversation. "I understand. And where are you from, dear?" insisted the aunt, clearly distrustful. "I grew up on the streets without a family. Arturo and Lorena gave me a chance to experience what it's like to have a home, even if it's for a short time," Daniela replied, keeping her composure. The glances and whispers continued, but Daniela remained firm. She knew that this opportunity would be unique, and she wouldn't let the disapproval of others affect her. Arturo sensed Daniela's discomfort and tried to integrate more activities that would unite them. One day, they spent the afternoon cooking together in La Mansion's kitchen. "Do you like to cook, Daniela?" asked Arturo while cutting vegetables. "I never had many opportunities to cook, but I always found it interesting." "It's something I never imagined doing," answered Daniela, smiling. "Let's do something simple but special. It's a way to get to know each other better and also for you to experience a little of what a family routine is," said Arturo animatedly. The days passed quickly, and the connection between Arturo and Daniela deepened. Arturo began to see in her something more than a lost young woman, he saw potential and determination. Daniela, for her part, began to feel a warmth and acceptance that she had never experienced before. However, Lorena did not see this with good eyes. The week that began with hope and opportunities began to become tense in Arturo's mansion. From the first meeting between Lorena and Daniela, a palpable tension floated in the air. Lorena could not hide her discomfort with Daniela's presence and the way Arturo treated her. Lorena began to suspect Daniela's intentions and did not hide her antipathy. The situation worsened one Thursday morning when Daniela entered the kitchen to prepare breakfast, something that Arturo had suggested to help her feel more at home. "What are you doing here?" asked Lorena. "Arturo suggested that I could make breakfast today," Daniela answered, trying to remain calm. "Of course he suggested it," said Lorena with a tone of sarcasm. "Do you think you're going to win over everyone here with your false kindness?" Daniela was surprised by the accusation and tried to defend herself. "I'm not trying to win anyone over, Lorena. I just want to know what it's like to have a family, even if it's for a short time." "Family? Do you think you can enter our lives and simply become a part of it?" "Don't be naive," replied Lorena, crossing her arms. "I know it's hard to understand, but I'm not here to manipulate anyone. I just want to feel what it's like to have a home," insisted Daniela, feeling the tears threatening to spring forth. Lorena snorted incredulously. "I see right through you. You're using that victim story to gain Arturo's sympathy, and he's falling right into your trap," accused Lorena. "That's not true," Daniela raised her voice for the first time, feeling frustrated. "All I asked for was a chance to feel what it's like to have a father and a family. I don't want anything more than that." The tension was almost palpable, and Lorena approached Daniela, her face just a few inches from hers. "I don't trust you, Daniela, and I'm going to make sure Arturo sees who you are," Lorena whispered before turning around and leaving the kitchen. Daniela stood, taking a deep breath to calm herself. She knew it would be hard, but she didn't expect it to be so painful. She wanted to give up, but Arturo's promise to treat her like a daughter for a week kept her strong. She couldn't let Lorena destroy this one chance to experience something she had always wanted. Later that day, Arturo realized something was wrong. Daniela was quiet and she seemed distant. He found her sitting in the garden, looking at the horizon with a sad expression. "Daniela, is okay?" Arturo asked, sitting next to her. "No, Arturo, I'm not," said Daniela, looking at him with eyes full of tears. "Lorena doesn't believe me. She thinks I'm here to manipulate you," Arturo sighed, running his hand through his hair. "I knew this would be hard for her, but I didn't imagine it would get to this point. I'm going to talk to Lorena." "This can't go on like this," Arturo promised, worried. "Thank you, Arturo, but no. I don't want to cause trouble between you two. I just wanted a little piece of family love," Daniela said sadly. Arturo touched Daniela's shoulder, trying to comfort her. "I understand, Daniela, and I'm going to do my best to make sure you have that experience. I promise we'll work this out," he said, determined. That night during dinner, the tension was in the air again. Lorena looked at Daniela with disdain while Arturo tried to keep the peace. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore and decided to face the situation. "Lorena, we need to talk about this. We can't go on like this," said Arturo firmly. "Talk about what, Arturo? About how this girl is cheating on you?" Lorena replied, crossing her arms. "Daniela is not here to cheat on us. She just wants to experience what it's like to have a family. Please try to understand that," Arturo asked, looking deeply into her eyes. "Understand? Do you want me to understand that you brought a stranger into our house and you're treating her like a daughter?" "That's absurd," Lorena replied angrily. "Lorena, I know this is hard for you, but we need to be more understanding. Daniela has no one. This is the first time she's experiencing something like a home," said Arturo, trying to calm his wife. Lorena looked at Daniela, who was quiet and visibly uncomfortable. "If you want to help her so much, it's fine. But I'm not going to pretend that I'm happy with this," Lorena said, getting up from the table and leaving the dining room. Arturo sighed, feeling helpless. He looked at Daniela, his eyes downcast, fighting back tears. "Everything is going to be okay, Daniela. I promise you," said Arturo, trying to comfort her. "Thanks, Arturo. I just hope this doesn't cause you any more problems," she thanked him with her shaky words. That night was long and difficult for everyone in the mansion. The tension between Daniela and Lorena seemed insurmountable, and Arturo knew he would need all his patience and understanding to help resolve this situation. He was determined to keep his promise to Daniela, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. So, the week that began with hope and opportunities was turning into an emotional battle, and no one knew how it was going to end. While Arturo began to fulfill his promise to treat Daniela like a daughter, the young beggar took advantage of the new experiences. But the tranquility was shaken when he found an old acquaintance, Leandro, while walking through the streets of the city. "Leandro, is that you?" asked Daniela, opening his eyes wide. "Yes, it's me, Leandro." "How are you, Daniela?" answered Leandro, smiling. "You seem like your life has taken a turn," commented Leandro, curious. "It's a long story. I found a folder with important documents, and I decided to return it to the owner. It ended up allowing me to live with him for a week," explained Daniela. Leandro was impressed and asked for more details. Daniela took a photo of Arturo and Lorena out of her pocket, showing her friend who the people involved were. "This is Arturo, the owner of the documents, and this is Lorena, his wife," said Daniela, pointing at the photo. Leandro frowned upon seeing Lorena's photo. "I know that woman. I saw her throwing garbage in a container on the street a few nights ago. It seemed strange to me because it was late at night, and that street was quite isolated." "She doesn't live nearby," revealed Leandro, surprised. Daniela felt a chill hearing Leandro's words. Could it be possible that Lorena had something to do with the disappearance of the documents? She decided that she needed to tell Arturo about this discovery. Later that night, Daniela approached Arturo while he was in the study going through some papers. "Arturo, I need to talk to you." "It's important," said Daniela in a serious voice. "Of course, Daniela." "What's wrong?" answered Arturo, looking at her with concern. "Today, I found a friend, and I showed him a picture of you and Lorena. He said that he saw Lorena throwing garbage in a container on the street late at night. It seemed strange to him because the street was isolated, and she doesn't live there," explained Daniela, trying to keep her calm. Arturo remained silent for a moment, processing the information. Finally, he got up and walked towards the window, looking out. "Are you saying that Lorena could have thrown my documents on purpose?" asked Arturo with a tense voice. "I don't know, Arturo, but it seems strange, don't you think?" said Daniela, approaching him. Arturo sighed, passing his hand over his face. "This is serious, Daniela. I need to talk to Lorena about this. Let's solve it right now," decided Arturo. Arturo and Daniela went to the living room where Lorena was watching television. He approached her with a serious expression. "Lorena, we need to talk now," said Arturo bluntly. "What's wrong, Arturo?" "Why so serious?" asked Lorena, visibly irritated. "Daniela met a friend today. She said that she saw you throwing garbage in a container on the street late at night. I want to know what you were doing there," said Arturo. Crossing her arms, Lorena turned pale for a moment but quickly regained her composure. "This is absurd, Arturo. Are you going to believe the word of a beggar?" replied Lorena, trying to seem offended. "It's not a question of believing or not. I just want an explanation," insisted Arturo, keeping a firm tone. "I didn't throw anything. I don't know what they're talking about." "This is ridiculous," said Lorena, her voice shaking slightly. Arturo perceived Lorena's nervous reaction, and that only increased his suspicions. "Lorena, please. Just tell the truth. If you do something, we can solve it together." "But I need to know the truth," asked Arturo, trying to remain calm. "I already said that I didn't do anything," shouted Lorena, getting up from the couch. "Lorena, I'm going to find out the truth with or without your help." "I hope you're being honest with me," said Arturo before leaving the room. Lorena stood, breathing deeply, while Daniela watched her. "Daniela, don't get involved where it doesn't concern you. You're not even family. You're an intruder who only causes problems, said Lorena with contempt. I'm not trying to cause problems, Lorena. I just want a chance to have a family, even if it's for a short time, answered Daniela, trying to remain calm. Lorena approached Daniela with a fierce look. Family? Do you think you can just show up here and steal my husband? Accused Lorena, raising her voice. Arturo, amazed by Lorena's words, intervened quickly. Lorena, this is absurd. Daniela does not want to steal anything from anyone. She just wants to experience what it is to have a family, said Arturo, ending the discussion. Oh, of course. And I am supposed to believe that a beggar who appears out of nowhere with a sad story, and you just swallow it? Shouted Lorena, pointing at Daniela with her finger. Arturo, trying to maintain his composure, said, Enough, Lorena. Let's end this discussion. It's late. Let's sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk more calmly, declared Arturo, making a gesture for everyone to leave. Daniela, feeling humiliated, went to the room that had been assigned to her. Lorena was still muttering insults as she went up the stairs. Arturo observed everything with an uncomfortable feeling. Something was not right. Lorena's nervous reaction turned on an alert in his mind. During the night, Arturo stayed lying in bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, his mind boiling with the revelations and Lorena's behavior. Leandro, Daniela's friend, resonated in his thoughts. How could Lorena be involved in something so low? And why tomorrow I hire a detective? I need to understand what is going on, decided Arturo silently, with a determined mind. The next morning began with a heavy climate in the mansion. Arturo went down to breakfast with the firm decision to discover the truth. He called his trusted assistant for a private meeting. Javier, I need you to find a good detective, someone discreet and efficient, instructed Arturo in a low voice. Of course, sir. Any specific problem? Asked Javier, curious. I prefer not to go into details. Now, just take care of this as quickly as possible, Arturo replied, ending the conversation. Meanwhile, Daniela tried to avoid Lorena and the tensions in the house. She felt like an intruder but was also determined to take advantage of the week promised by Arturo. The young beggar knew she needed to stay calm and be patient. Lorena, on the other hand, was restless. She realized that her reaction the night before had raised suspicions. She needed to be more careful and find a way to get Daniela away before things got worse. At the end of the afternoon, the detective hired by Arturo arrived at the mansion. Arturo received him in his office, away from Lorena's prying eyes. Detective Ricardo Belmonte, I need you to investigate my wife, Lorena. There is something strange going on and I need the truth, said Arturo bluntly. Understood, sir. Any specific details I should know? Asked the detective, writing down the details provided by Arturo. Arturo hesitated for a moment but knew he needed to be transparent to get results. Lorena was accused of throwing away important documents of mine. An acquaintance of Daniela, the girl who is staying with us, said that she saw a woman who looked like Lorena throwing something in a garbage container on a remote street. I want you to check the security cameras on the indicated street and see if that is true. Ricardo nodded, writing down the information carefully. Okay, sir, I will analyze the cameras and I will follow that lead, he said, leaving the office with a calm determination. While Ricardo began his investigations, the tension in the mansion continued to grow. Lorena did everything possible to avoid Daniela, while Arturo tried to keep the peace. He knew that the truth was about to be revealed and he feared the consequences. That night, before going to sleep, Arturo reflected on his decision. He knew that the investigation could destroy his marriage, but the truth was more important. Security and justice must prevail. Tomorrow, a new phase will begin, thought Arturo as he closed his eyes, hoping that the truth, as painful as it was, would bring peace back to his life. Ricardo needed to be fast and efficient, and Arturo needed to remain calm while waiting for the results. Daniela, unaware of Arturo's plans, continued trying to adapt to her new reality, albeit temporarily, while Lorena felt the net closing more and more. The next day, Ricardo returned to the mansion. He had reviewed hours of recordings from the security cameras and was ready to report his discoveries to Arturo. "Sir, Arturo, I reviewed the recordings of the indicated street. Can we talk in private?" asked Ricardo. Arturo took the detective to his office and closed the door, anxious for what was to come. "What did you discover?" asked Arturo, with the tension evident in his voice. Ricardo took a folder from his briefcase and opened it, revealing printed photos and screenshots of the recordings. Mrs. Lorena appears on the security cameras throwing a bag of garbage in a container on the aforementioned street. The time coincides with what Daniela's acquaintance recounted, Ricardo explained, handing the evidence to Arturo. Arturo looked at the images, his heart sinking as he saw his wife involved in something so suspicious. "It can't be," muttered Arturo, still in disbelief. "Unfortunately, it's the truth. Besides, her movements were quite furtive, as if she didn't want to be seen," added Ricardo with a serious tone. Arturo took a deep breath, trying to process the information. Lorena's reaction on the night of the confrontation now made much more sense. "I knew I needed to act." But the idea of facing his wife left him apprehensive. "Thank you, I will make good use of this information. You can go and keep this an absolute secret," instructed Arturo. "Of course, sir. I am at your disposal for any other need," said Ricardo, leaving the office discreetly. Arturo was left alone, looking at the evidence on the table. The pain of betrayal was overwhelming, but he knew he had to face the truth, no matter how hard it was. That night, after dinner, Arturo decided it was time to confront Lorena again. He called her to his office, trying to keep Lorena calm. "We need to talk," said Arturo firmly. Lorena entered the office, trying to hide her nervousness. She knew Arturo was becoming more and more distrustful, but she wasn't expecting what was to come. "What do you want to talk about?" she asked, trying to sound carefree. Arturo took the folder with the evidence and put it on the table in front of Lorena. "I want to talk about this," he said, opening the folder and showing the photos. Lorena paled, seeing the images. Her facade of confidence instantly crumbled. "This is not what it seems," she tried to justify herself. "Then explain it, Lorena, because what I see here is my wife throwing away important documents." "Documents that Daniela found and brought to me," said Arturo, disappointed. Lorena couldn't find a convincing answer. "I want the truth. Why did you throw away my documents?" Arturo went straight to the point, his eyes fixed on Lorena's. Lorena hesitated, but the pressure was evident. She knew she had no escape now. Finally, the mask of Lorena fell and showed her true face. "I did that because I wanted to hurt you, Arturo. I thought that if you lost those documents, your life would become chaos and I could get the fortune more easily," Lorena confessed with aggressive anger. Arturo remained silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the betrayal. He closed his eyes, trying to contain the anger and the pain he felt. "How could you do this, Lorena?" finally asked, his voice low and full of disappointment. "I was desperate, Arturo. I felt trapped in this marriage and I thought that was the only way out," Lorena answered, trying to justify her actions desperately. "Then you decided to destroy me?" "That is unacceptable, Lorena," said Arturo, getting up and starting to walk around the office. Lorena knew there was no turning back. She tried to approach Arturo, but he raised his hand, stopping her. "Come closer to me. You destroyed our trust, our family. I can't continue like this," declared Arturo firmly. "What are you going to do?" asked Lorena, starting to panic. "I'm going to ask for a divorce," said Arturo without hesitation. "No, Arturo, please don't do this," Lorena pleaded, tears beginning to roll down her face. "There is nothing else to do, Lorena. You unforgivably betrayed my trust. Our marriage is over, Arturo stated without looking away. Arturo's decision created immediate chaos in the family. The news of the divorce spread quickly, causing shock and outrage among family members and close friends. Lorena tried in vain to explain her actions to them, but her excuses rang empty. Arturo tried to deal with the emotional devastation. He locked himself in his office, deep in thought. Lorena was furious, quickly packing her bags while throwing hateful glances at everyone around her. Daniela, who was in the kitchen, could hear the screams and murmurs coming from upstairs. The atmosphere in the mansion was tense, charged with a negative energy that seemed to permeate every corner of the house. Arturo, in the office, was waiting for the inevitable final confrontation. He knew that Lorena would not leave without one last attempt to sow discord. Lorena hurriedly ran down the stairs, her expression a mix of anger and pain. When she saw Daniela in the kitchen, she stopped, and for a moment, it seemed that she was going to fall apart. But instead, she approached her, eyes shining with fury. "You got what you wanted, right, Lorena?" said her voice full of venom. "Always pretending to be the poor, helpless orphan. But I see through you, Daniela." Daniela turned around, surprised by the intensity of the attack. She remained calm, knowing that responding would only make the situation worse. "I didn't want to cause any problems, Lorena. I just wanted to help," said Daniela. Lorena laughed, a bitter sound full of contempt. "You came here with a plan. You fooled everyone, especially Arturo, but you're not going to fool me." At that moment, Arturo appeared at the kitchen door, attracted by the sound of the argument. He looked at Lorena for a moment before intervening. "That's enough, Lorena. Daniela is not guilty of anything. She just brought to light the truth that you tried to hide," said Arturo sadly. Lorena turned to Arturo, her gaze softening for a brief moment before hardening again. "The truth? The truth is that you are letting that girl meddle in our lives, destroy our marriage," accused Lorena, her words full of bitterness. Arturo sighed, running his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "Our marriage was already destroyed, Lorena. You threw away our vows along with those documents. Do not try to blame Daniela for your actions," said he with a softer but firmer tone. Lorena seemed about to explode again, but something in Arturo's firmness stopped her. She knew there was no turning back. With one last look of contempt towards Daniela, she took her bags and headed for the door. "This is not over, Arturo. You're going to regret treating me like that," she threatened with a low and dangerous tone. "I've already regretted many things, Lorena, but protecting my family is not one of them," Arturo replied, his words sounding sad. Daniela watched in silence as Lorena left La Mansion, slamming the door loudly. The sound echoed throughout the house, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Arturo approached Daniela with his shoulders slumped under the weight of the situation. "I'm so sorry you have to go through this, Daniela," he said sincerely. "This is not your fault," Daniela shook her head, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I know, Arturo. But I'm sorry this happened to you." "It's not what I wanted," she replied in a soft voice. Arturo smiled sadly, placing a comforting hand on Daniela's shoulder. "We're going to get through this together, Daniela. A new family based on truth and trust," he said, trying to find hope amid the turbulence. As night fell, La Mansion seemed quieter than ever. Arturo and Daniela knew they still had a long road ahead of them, but the honesty and courage of both had planted the seeds of a new life, a life where trust and true love could finally blossom. The next morning, Arturo was in the kitchen making coffee when Daniela showed up. He smiled at her, trying to bring a little normality to the recent chaos. "Good morning, Daniela. Did you sleep well?" he asked in a calm and warm voice. "Yes, sir. Arturo, better than in a long time," Daniela replied, smiling back. "Please, just Arturo. We are all home now," he said, handing her a cup of coffee. They sat at the table, sharing a comfortable silence for a moment. Arturo looked at Daniela, recognizing the strength and resilience she showed despite the adversities. Daniela, I want to thank you for your honesty. You brought to light something that I couldn't see, and for that, I am grateful, Arturo said, his eyes full of sincerity. I just wanted to help, sir. Arturo. I didn't want to cause problems, Daniela replied, feeling a lump in her throat. You didn't cause problems, Daniela. You revealed the truth. And for that, you deserve my respect, Arturo stated, offering a sad smile. Daniela felt a wave of relief mixed with sadness. Arturo continued. Daniela, I know this week has been difficult for you and me too, but I want you to know that I am here for you. We will overcome this together, Arturo said sincerely. With sincerity, Daniela nodded, feeling a wave of emotion. I know, Arturo. And I am very grateful for it. Since I found those documents, my life changed completely. I never thought I would find someone willing to help me like that, she said with a trembling voice. Arturo reached out his hand and took Daniela's, a gesture that spoke more than any words. You deserve a chance to have a better life, Daniela. And if it depends on me, you will have it. Now you are part of this family, he said. During the following days, Arturo made sure to include Daniela in all the activities of the house. They began to walk together through the garden and share life experiences. One afternoon, while they were in the garden, Arturo looked at Daniela with a sparkle in his eyes. You know, Daniela, since you came into my life, I realized how much I was missing. The whirlwind of business made me forget what matters, he said with emotion. And what is it that matters, Arturo? Asked Daniela, curious. Family, love, things that money can't buy. And you reminded me, he answered, smiling. Daniela felt her eyes fill with tears. She never imagined that she could mean so much to someone, especially a man like Arturo. Thank you, Arturo. I never had a real family. But now I feel that I finally found a home, she said excitedly. Arturo hugged Daniela, and at that moment, they both felt that they were on the right path to heal the wounds of the past and build a future together. As the days passed, Arturo began to plan Daniela's future more carefully. He hired private teachers to help her make up for lost time at school and encouraged her to think about her dreams and aspirations. Daniela, I want you to think about what you want to do, whether it's studying, working, or anything else. I will be here to support you, said Arturo during dinner. Daniela smiled, feeling more secure and confident than ever. I always wanted to study, maybe go to college, but I never thought it was possible, she admitted. Then let's make it possible. Let's work together so you can fulfill that dream, answered Arturo, determined. Arturo's unconditional support made Daniela feel valued and loved. She dedicated herself to her studies, and Arturo was always by her side, offering guidance and encouragement. Over time, the relationship between them grew stronger. It was not just a matter of financial or material support, it was a genuine bond of affection and mutual respect. Arturo saw in Daniela the daughter he never had, and Daniela saw in Arturo the father she always wanted. On a quiet night, sitting on the balcony watching the sunset, Arturo took Daniela's hand and said, Daniela, you have brought light to my life in a moment of darkness. I know we've been through a lot together. But I want you to know that you're my daughter now, and nothing can change that. Daniela looked at him, feeling completely accepted and loved. Thank you, Arturo. I feel the same way. You are the father I always wanted to have, she replied, tears of happiness in her eyes. From that moment on, Arturo's house was not just a luxurious mansion but a true home where love, trust, and mutual support reigned. Together, Arturo and Daniela faced the future with courage and hope, knowing that no matter what happens, they would always have each other. I invite you to leave your comment with your opinion on the story, and to like it, subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue with our work. And now, a new story is on your screen. I hope you enjoy this new session very much.